What is up, everybody? Shonnydman here, and welcome to the brand new The Auburn Podcast channel, hosted by me, of course. If you're unfamiliar, pretty much this is a separate channel from where I previously did Auburn videos. On my main gaming channel, I did for a while. I put everything in one place, basically my podcast, video games, other stuff. This is now a separate channel. This was something I was going to start at the beginning of the 2024 season, but I got busy with some other things, didn't get a chance to get around to get it up and going. But I thought now we were heading into 2025. This is a good opportunity to go ahead and kickstart this particular channel. Welcome. It'll be the same thing as before on my previous videos. If you have seen me before, I'm trying to think if there's anything particular I need to go into. I don't think so. I really don't think so. But anyway, so this first video, I just wanted to be relaxed with it and just take a look back at the 2024 season, and just give my thoughts on how things turned out throughout the season, the recruiting class, transfer portal, that kind of stuff. And so this is kind of like just a chill first episode for this new channel. I will have another one out either on Saturday night or Sunday morning in regards to Auburn's basketball game against Missouri. And I'll probably talk more about basketball in that video than I am in this video. I just mainly want to focus on the football side of things when it comes to Auburn. So obviously 2024 was not a good year for Auburn. Pretty much low point throughout the entire season, with the exception of beating Kentucky and beating Texas A&M to get yourself at least 2 SEC wins. Finished 5-7 on the season. Now, at the beginning of the season, or just like during the early weeks of fall camp, I don't think I did a prediction on my other channel at that time. I think this was still during a time where I was working on getting this thing set up and going. But at beginning of fall camp, I was thinking that Auburn was going, with that schedule that they at least could get 7, maybe 8 wins. 8 wins is where I was like, they should get 8 wins, because you had your first 5 home games, or first 5 games all at home, and there were games you should have won. Like, obviously, you won your 2 cupcakes at home. The Cal game, you should have won the Cal game. Obviously, you had Peyton Thorne threw like 4 interceptions. The whole interception thing, that's ticky-tacky to me, because there's some you can put on him, but then there's some you have to put on others. So, like, I think Cam Coleman, one of the interceptions in that game was like just bounced off his hands, and Cal defender was in the right place at the right time kind of situation. There's not much you can do about that. But you should have won the Cal game. Plain and simple. Then we get Hank Brown. I believe this was for Georgia Southern, or maybe. Obviously he plays relatively good against a cupcake. Obviously, it is what it is. It was against a cupcake. So, then he gets a start against Arkansas. Doesn't do very well against Arkansas. That whole game was a mess. It just felt like watching. Sometimes Auburn and Arkansas get into these weird kind of games like that. It's just a mess. He obviously has some turnovers. He gets pulled. Peyton comes in the second half and actually almost leads Auburn back to a victory. But that, like, just stupid things happen in the game. Players making dumb mistakes, questionable coaching decision, which is kind of like a theme that's happened throughout the entire season with this Auburn football team. Was at some point in a game, either a player does something, a coach or like Hugh Freeze does something. It's just like there's always something that happens in the game that usually resulted in Auburn losing the game. So you lose the Arkansas game, you're sitting at 2-2. You got Oklahoma coming in. Now, you should have beat Oklahoma. Now that is one for sure you should have beaten, because if you look at how things have turned out for Oklahoma throughout the season, you should have beaten them. Like they barely had any wide receivers available in that game against Auburn. They put in a true freshman who really didn't beat you with his arm. Like he had maybe one pass play that did beat you that resulted in a touchdown, but for the most part, it was an inept offense. You clearly had the advantage to win this game, and you were on the verge of winning the game until you throw a pick six. So now you're sitting at 2-3. At the beginning of the offseason, I was in my head, I was thinking, going into the Georgia game, you needed to be at least 5-0 or 4-1 going into the Georgia game. Well, guess what? You go into the Georgia game, you're 2-3. Now you do put up a pretty spirited fight against Georgia, but it's just not enough for you to overcome Georgia. And probably a questionable touchdown at the goal line by the refs and stuff like that. But it is what it is. Missouri, you should have beaten Missouri. I don't know what they gave Brady Cook in that game that gave him super soldier strength to come back into the game, because I believe he went to the hospital. Like Auburn clearly was in control of that game. They were more likely going to win the game if it wasn't for Brady Cook coming back and doing these last minute heroics to get them to win. Like it was ridiculous. Like Auburn always found a way to lose games. Like it just made no sense. It's a lot of the time. Who was next after that? After that, I believe it was no, you had a bye after Georgia, then went to Missouri. You play Kentucky. Now, Kentucky's awful. They're a very bad team. But you play Kentucky and you win that game with a very outstanding performance by Jarquez Hunter, which is what a lot of fans wanted to see more of, was Jarquez Hunter being the focal point of the offense. And in the game against Kentucky, he showed why he's clearly the best player on the roster. I would definitely say Keandre Lambert-Smith was definitely second, but Jarquez Hunter was just the best player on the roster, and he felt like he didn't get enough touches this season. I mean, he had 1,000 yards plus, but it just felt like he could have had more if the focus of the offense ran through the. You had an outstanding stable of running backs: Jarquez Hunter, Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb. We thought running the ball, or at least I did. I'm not sure about other people, but I'm sure they had the same mindset as me. You had young wide receivers: Cam Coleman, Michael Simmons, Perry Thompson, Bryce Kane. You had some young receivers that you kind of have to bring along slowly. I thought they would have relied more on the run game just so they could buy some time for these receivers to get acclimated to the college level and then see where we are from there. But that just wasn't the case. So Jarquez Hunter goes off against Kentucky and he gives you an outstanding game, like a career high. I believe in rushing attempts. I believe that's what it was at the time. And obviously he has a good season. Now he's been here for 4 years, obviously, but that's one player right there where Brian Harsin did a good job at picking out, because he was like a 3-star. I don't think many people picked him out or offered him out of Mississippi. I believe he was from Mississippi. But he had a good season, and so you beat Kentucky. You come back home for not being at a home game for about a month. You come back home to play Vanderbilt. You remember what happened last year when you played New Mexico State and Diego Pavia. Basically, the same thing happened here. You only score like 7 or 10 points against Vanderbilt. And now Diego Pavia is coming back again because he's got that stupid extra year of eligibility because of like JUCO and all that stuff. Then you get the who was it? You get Louisiana Monroe. Obviously, you win that game. You get Texas A&M, and that is where, at least for a half, the Auburn team we thought we were going to see shows up. Like Cam Coleman makes plays, Keandre Laver-Smith makes plays, Jarquez Hunter makes plays. Everybody was making, like, defensively, they were doing a really good job of containing Marcel Reed and limiting the Texas A&M offense. Special teams was fine, I think, in that game. But, like, offensively and defensively, you got what you thought you were going to see throughout the season. Now, defensively, you did. Like, DJ Durkin deserves a lot of credit for what he did with this defense, especially with the amount of young freshmen that he played throughout the season. Caleb Harris, Jay Crawford, DeMarcus Riddick, Malik Blockton, Amaris Williams got some reps. He did such a great job with this defense. Obviously, it turns into a wild game, goes into like double or 3 overtimes. Auburn pulls it out and gets to at least 5 and 6 with the opportunity to beat Alabama, to get, officially knock them out of the playoffs, but also get themselves a 6th win to go bowling. Now, it was a tight game with Alabama. It just offensively, you just didn't do enough. Like, defensively, your defense got 4 turnovers for you in that game. Just offensively, Hugh Freeze didn't call. I don't think he was aggressive enough in that game, in my opinion. And obviously, you lose by 2 touchdowns, but your season ends at that point. There's not much you can do except for get ready for transfer portal. And it's just the transfer portal and recruiting obviously was really surprising. Now, recruiting, you did have some last minute things happen, but like overall with recruiting, it despite Auburn going 5 and 7, you held on really for the majority of the players that you recruited who have been committed to you for quite a while. Now, you did lose like 2 or 3, I think, during signing day. Shamir Arnaud, who was a cornerback, you had him, but then he flipped to Florida State. Nate Marshall flipped him back to Michigan, which is understandable. It's a lot closer home and things like that. I feel like there's another one that Auburn may have missed out on, but I don't. I believe Tavares Dice, he flipped from Auburn to Florida. And then obviously you thought you had Naheem offered. But ultimately you got beat out. Zion Grady, you lost him. But I mean, like, Auburn, but Hugh Freeze and Auburn pretty much got all the talent. Like the top 12 players in the state, I think it was, at least all but 2 committed to Auburn. And so you finish 5 and 7, but managed to have a top 10 class. I think top 6 or 7 is where it ended after all things were said and done. So 2023, you go and you come in, you don't have a whole lot of time to get your class together, or at least keep it together, things like that. You finish at least, I believe, 19th in that class, 2024, you finished top 8, I think it was top 8 or 9, I think. And then this past recruiting class, you finished top 10 again. So you're stacking the talent, and like this past class has good players, not a whole lot of like blue chippers, but it's still littered with talented players, and a lot of them are definitely going to see the field in 2025 for sure. Because especially on defense, DJ Durkin has shown he is not afraid to play freshmen if they're up to the task of playing, and if they're doing all the right things that he or the defensive staff is asking of them to do, then you're definitely going to see the field. You got your quarterback in Deuce Knight. Now it was such a long waiting period in regards to the quarterback position due to the fact that you were going after KJ Lacey, you were going after Hassan Longstreet, you were going after Julian Lewis. I feel like there's another one, but then obviously Deuce Knight. You're able to flip Deuce Knight, and he had himself a showing, from what I understand, with the Alabama Mississippi game. So you got your quarterback of the class, but now we're going into 2025, losing Peyton Thorne, who ran out of eligibility, Holden Gerner, who give credit to Holden for sticking around, finishing, getting his graduating from Auburn and then hitting the portal. He deserves credit for that. Well, Walker White, just out of nowhere, decides he wants to enter the transfer portal. He's committed to Baylor, and then Hank Brown entered the transfer portal. He committed to Iowa, I believe. So you lose 4 quarterbacks out of this previous 2024 roster. But I mean, Auburn, they did a good job. Jackson Arnold, I think, is a pretty talented player. I just think he had what was going on with Oklahoma and their offense. This is really tough to say. Like, he had no receivers whatsoever on that team. Like, every week, whenever you saw, because like the SEC now requires teams to like put out players who are going to be unavailable for games and things like that. And every week you could look at Oklahoma's players that are going to be out. They had like a multitude of injured wide receivers. And I don't think they were really good at running the ball either. All their offensive line, it was a patchwork, I think. It was like a rotate. I think they had like 8 different combinations of offensive linemen play a snap throughout the 2024 season. So overall, from an offensive standpoint, Jackson Arnold never really had anything going for him. Now he's committed to Auburn. He's coming into an offensive room where his offensive line is going to be extremely better with Connor Liu at center. They picked up 2, a left tackle and a right tackle, really talented left tackle and right tackle. They picked up a guard too, I think. You got Dylan Wade, who I believe is coming back. So his offensive line is going to be better. I'm not saying what's that word? I'm not saying he's the starter for 2025. It depends on what Auburn does in regards to like any other quarterback moves happening like after spring, things like that. But he's going to have a much better, more reliable set of skilled weapons on the outside. Cam Coleman, Michael Simmons, who came on throughout the season, who really gave Auburn an extra dimension offensively. Perry Thompson, who now about to go through a full spring offseason, has an opportunity to really improve himself, to get himself into that position, to get some starting reps. You got Eric Singleton, who was at Georgia Tech. Yeah. I had to think for a second. I was like, did I say the right name? So Horatio Fields, you picked him up as well as an additional wide receiver. And you also got some guys through the high school recruiting ranks. So you definitely went out from a transfer portal prospect and got needs that that needed to be addressed. Now there were some you really didn't hit on just quite yet, like defensive linemen. You need some extra, like maybe 2 guys at least. Linebacker, maybe 1 if you want to get like a veteran linebacker guy. Then I'd be okay with that, because I would assume going into depending on how spring shapes out, you're going to go into your 2025 season with like DeMarcus Riddick, Robert Woodyard, and probably Joe Phillips as your linebacker. I feel like, or maybe I'm missing somebody. I could be missing somebody, but I can't think of who I'd be missing. I don't think they picked up a linebacker. See, now I got to look. Let's see. I don't think they picked up a linebacker. Let's see. Oh, you did. You picked up Xavier Atkins, who was at LSU. That's right. But I think he was what was he? I think he was like a freshman this year. I think he was. I can't see. Yeah. Yeah, he was he was a freshman at LSU this past season. He's coming in as basically like I think either a redshirt sophomore or a true sophomore. But again, he's probably going to be in a better system compared to what was going on with LSU this past season. Trying to think of who else, and then Xavier Chapman. Do we have 2? Do we have 2? We do. Xavier Chapman. That's the offensive tackle. That was one of them I mentioned. And then there was another one. Who was the other guy? I'm looking at the 24/7 sports recruiting. Mason Murphy. So those 2 right there, Chapman and Murphy, are probably going to be your starting left tackle, right tackle. I forgot which one it was. I believe it was Chapman because he was at Virginia Tech, and I think he only allowed 1 sack all season. So definitely getting somebody good. Auburn was able to get themselves a kicker because obviously nobody was really expecting the whole Alex McPherson issue he was having. We did have Towns Magoo, who was kicking like crazy during the spring game, but just wasn't reliable throughout the 2024 season. Had to rely on a third guy from, I believe he was from the FCS. I can't remember his name. And so you addressed a large majority of the needs that needed to be addressed for this roster. You still have the spring portal to bring in guys. Obviously, you could possibly bring in guys who are finishing up bowl games. Maybe not the playoff ones, because depending on how far they go, would they be eligible in time to enroll at Auburn? So it's really hard to say. But I think right now, for the most part, Auburn's going to be done in the transfer portal. I believe a large majority of both the high school and transfer portal players are going to be on campus. The Auburn signed 25 high schoolers, but side note, there is a chance they're going to sign another running back. I believe Mabson, out of Auburn. I think he's a running back. I believe he reclassified to the 2025 class. and more than likely, I would assume he's going to end up at Auburn. And so, but other than that, like Auburn signed about 25 high school prospects, and 21 of those prospects are going to be enrolled and available for spring. And that is huge, because a lot of those guys, like I mentioned, you're going to rely on them for like playing time and to help out throughout the 2025 season. And then I believe your transfer portal players, obviously, they'll be there for spring. The only one who I think won't be is the other quarterback that Auburn picked up, Ashton Daniels. He's graduating from Stanford in the summer, so I would rather him. I mean, that's important, obviously. So he won't be here for spring. So you're going to be going unless something happens, because you're going to have to figure out a third quarterback. Because I had thought potentially Sam Jackson, you could just move him from receiver to quarterback, but he recently entered a transfer portal, so that's not going to happen. So I don't know what Auburn's going to do, what Hugh Freeze is going to do in regards to the quarterback position, because right now, with Daniels not coming until after spring, you're going to go into spring camp with just Jackson Arnold and Deuce Knight, which will be good for Deuce Knight because he gets a lot of those reps. The same thing with the receivers. I believe I was listening to Zach Blackerby with Locked on Auburn. Like Auburn's they're gonna have like 6 of their receivers available for spring, and then like Eric Smith and Derek Smith they'll come in during the summertime. But that's massive for a guy like Perry Thompson, who can definitely work on. He's going to get a lot of reps. There's going to be a lot of reps going around for a lot of these players in regards to the quarterback with Jackson Arnold and Deuce Knight, and then the receivers. So I think going out of spring, I think Auburn, because I feel like you kind of need to have a plan of like where things are at before you get to fall, because you open next season with Baylor on the road. And so I feel like you need to go ahead and get everything kind of like maybe not locked down, but like pencil in places, like players who are more likely going to be starters and backups. That way, when you get into fall camp, you can kind of start getting things ready and implementing things for that game against Baylor. And the best thing about it, last night in the Texas Bowl, Baylor and LSU played. So Hugh Freeze not only has a whole season's worth of Baylor tape, he also has the bowl game tape to evaluate, and they can come up with a game plan on beating Baylor when they go to Waco next season. I haven't thought about if I wanted to go to that game or not, maybe. Which I'll talk more about the Auburn schedule a little bit later on in another video. But overall, the 2024 season did not go well. I was always like in the mindset of 2025 was probably the year Auburn was going to make a move. I know everybody was like all up in arms in regards to Auburn not taking a quarterback the previous cycle before the 2024 season. I was fine with them, even though I know the outcome of the season. I was fine with them not taking a quarterback. Now, I don't know what the Cam Ward price tag was. I don't know. People float out numbers all the time, so I'm not going to really believe any of that stuff. But I would have liked, even if it was $1 million, I would have rather spent that money on making sure you plug holes in your roster, and then in 2025 you make a run. You find yourself a quarterback who can get you through the 2025 season, and then after that you can rely on, at the time you could rely on Hank Brown, Walker White, Deuce Knight. Obviously that plan has changed a little bit. You've got Jackson Arnold, who has, I believe, 2 or 3 years of eligibility. I think 2 at the most, maybe. So it is what it is. But like, there are some good things that like happened during the season where like Keandre Lambert Smith was an outstanding bright spot for this team, because when he was at Penn State, he was like, he started out hot there, but then as the season went on, he was slowly just not getting the touches. But he gets to Auburn and he's 30 yards away, I believe like 30 or 36 yards away of potentially being 1,000 yards receiver. And like, despite the losses, you can definitely tell that there were glimpses of Auburn offensively improving. Like, Peyton Thorne went from passing for like 1,700 yards last season to about 3,000 yards passing. Jarquez Hunter had 1,000 yards rushing. Keandre Lambert Smith almost had 1,000 yards receiving. So, yes, offensively it looked bad. Yes, there were like, you had losses, but you can definitely tell there was some kind of improvement offensively. Now it's up to Hugh Freeze to fix the issues that were plaguing this offense last season. I was not a big fan of some of the play calling he was doing. He would always somehow do a stupid trick play at the worst times possible, and it was just retarded. I probably should say retarded, but whatever. It was just dumb at times that he did it, and then just like it just this. I feel like it was like an over reliance of having to pass the ball. Now, a lot of that could be, related to potentially like making sure these receivers that you brought in, they're getting touches and that kind of stuff. Otherwise, they'll transfer out or something like that. I don't know, but I don't know. But hopefully this offseason, Hugh Freeze with Derek Nix, they come up with a solid game plan throughout the season that best maximizes these players. I think, even though we have the 2024 season of Jackson Arnold, you could probably make the case that Jackson Arnold could be better than what Peyton Thorne was. Jackson Arnold, I believe he ran an RPO based system out of high school, and Jeff Lebby ran that when he was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma before he left for Mississippi State. So Hugh Freeze gets him another guy who's familiar with RPO, the RPO system. So I don't know. We'll see. We will see. We definitely got a couple of weeks to go before I don't even think Auburn has released when they're going to be starting spring. Probably won't really find that out about February. I think it is like after the conclusion of the national championship game and that kind of stuff. But I just, obviously Auburn fans like deserve to be upset and everything. It was how the season turned out. But listen, man, like, the one thing about Auburn fans you can definitely say they will still be there to support the team regardless. Like, after Brian Harsin was fired, we had the whole Texas A&M game where Cadillac was the interim coach. Game was sold out. The game was electric. You had old players there to support Cadillac Williams. It was just a wild game. Like, you're even though fans are going to be frustrated, even though fans are going to be dumb and go on Twitter and say stupid stuff sometimes, they're going to be there regardless to support these players and coaches. It's up to Hugh Freeze now to give back, because a lot of these Auburn fans have been showing up to these games the past 2 seasons, even though there has not been a ton of good looking offense. It's up to Hugh Freeze now to definitely pay it forward and put better product on the field for fans to be excited about. I won't buy into the narrative that Hugh Freeze is on the hot seat if he doesn't accomplish anything this season. I just can't buy that, because it's just, you just can't keep firing coaches and rotating coaches like that. Otherwise you just become like Tennessee. But it depends on how things shape out. We'll have to just wait and see how things look during spring, get ready for summer, start recruiting for the 2026 class, because Auburn has a good chance of finishing in the top 5 as of maybe it's been a while since that recruiting, so I'm not entirely sure how that's going, but I know they're in the top 10. They were like number 1 at some point with the 2026 class, but now Auburn could, like, Hugh Freeze can them go work on focusing on the 2026 class, get that squared away. Probably get that squared away early, including getting a quarterback early, so you can not have to worry about it as much during the season. So, but yeah, we'll definitely see how things shape out throughout this upcoming 2025 year. That's pretty much all I have for you guys. Want to do like a quick little Now it really wasn't quick, but I wanted to do like a recap and just talk about, give my thoughts about the 2024 season. Like I said, I should have a video out regarding Auburn basketball this Saturday night or Sunday. Just depending on my schedule and things like that. But be sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Be sure you comment below. Let me hear your thoughts. But guys, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Y'all have a good one.